Hey there, teachers! Imagine a membership site that gives you everything you need to create impactful literacy lessons all in one place. That's exactly what you get with the Colorful Literacy Toolkit. Especially when it comes to word-level work like phonics and morphology instruction, this toolkit has you covered. It's packed with science of reading aligned resources and activities that make your small group table come alive, helping every student break down words with confidence. And the best part? Doors are now open for a limited time, and you can become a founding member. Head over to michelleandthecolorfulclassroom.com to take a look at what's inside. Your best year in literacy is just a click away. Check it out. You're listening to episode 3 of Literacy in Color. Welcome to the Literacy in Color podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Sullivan, a science of reading advocate with over a decade of experience as a reading interventionist and literacy coach. I'm passionate about making evidence-based instruction both effective and engaging. If you're interested in captivating our learners on reading fluently and understanding language, or as I like to call it, keeping it colorful, then you've found the right place. Each week, we'll explore intriguing lit bits and practical strategies around the science of reading and structured literacy to help you be colorful and teach colorfully. Are you ready to bring literacy to life? Let's color outside the lines and make an impact together. One of the key appeals of balanced literacy was this emphasis on fostering a deep love for reading. The idea was if we would surround our students with beautiful, rich literature and create opportunities for them to explore their identities as readers, they would naturally fall in love with books. The mantra was always volume, volume, volume. And when we consider David Scher's self-teaching hypothesis, this idea of orthographic learning, there's a glimmer of truth here. Volume and wide reading are important, but it's not the avenue in which students learn how to read. Students need to first have this established knowledge of phoneme-grapheme correspondences, and this is by means of explicit instruction. Balanced literacy was appealing for so many years because there was this holistic message about igniting joy around literacy. Teachers would move heaven and earth to carve out uninterrupted time for students to read and to write. It focuses on student choice, engagement, and creating a classroom culture where books were these magical windows to the world. And really, who can argue with that? Philosophically, it's beautiful. But unfortunately, it's a methodology that's failed our nation's children as a whole. On the other hand, for decades in the so-called reading wars, structured literacy, particularly phonics instruction, was often viewed as dry in comparison. Critics would argue that decodable texts lack the charm of authentic literature, and teaching foundational skills like phonics can seem mechanical and rote. And it's easy to see why foundational skills don't carry the same intrinsic allure. They're more about the technical work of learning to decode rather than losing yourself in a story. But it's important to remember that these skills are the very foundation that allows students to unlock that joy of reading in the long run. Without laying the foundation, the magic of reading remains out of reach. So in this episode, we're diving into the idea that teaching literacy is both a science and an art. When we talk about the science of reading, we focus on evidence-based practices rooted in decades of research. But there's more to teaching than just research. There's the creativity, flexibility, and heart that brings it all to life in the classroom. In fact, there's the science of reading and the science of learning. And I want to highlight a powerful quote from Anna Geiger's latest book, Reach All Readers, that's particularly moving. She writes that most of what teachers do in the classroom is an interpretation of the science. The teacher's job is to learn the science and make the best possible teaching decisions in light of it. And that's the heart of what we're discussing today. How to take the science And with creativity and passion, shape it into something that not only builds strong readers, but also sparks a love for reading that lasts a lifetime. So let's consider 3 steps to bridging evidence with creativity in your teaching practice. The first step is to start with the science to build a strong foundation. The science of reading includes decades of comprehensive research and information from developmental and educational psychology, from cognitive science and neuroscience, and even linguistics, and how this all contributes to our understanding of how the brain learns to read, and also what's essential for reading proficiency. This research includes thousands of studies across the globe conducted in multiple languages. As a teacher, immerse yourself in whatever you have time to, whether it's reading a new book, following some great accounts on social media, or even listening to this podcast. Your teacher knowledge is the backbone of every instructional decision you have to make in the classroom. The goal is to be smarter than your program. Build up your knowledge on what's research-based and what's evidence-based. But once you have that foundation, you have the freedom to decide how to teach those concepts. The art of teaching comes in when you choose methods and activities that fit your style, your students' needs, and are based on the science of learning. The trick is feeling confident in the research first. Step 2 is build relationships. So when we think science, we think formulas, predictability, replicable scenarios with replicable outcomes. And yes, this is all true. However, teaching is a human profession, and as much as we want to implement the science, it's truly a work of the heart. We want to see the students in front of us, really see them, build relationships with them. Think for a second of your all-time favorite teacher. I'm reminded of my 2nd grade teacher, Miss Fitzgerald, after she was married, Mrs. Schaefer, and I don't remember all of the ins and outs of 2nd grade. But I remember she always had a smile on her face. I remember her hearty laugh. I remember how she always made learning fun. And I remember wanting to go to school every single day. Relationships matter. In fact, it's essential to learning and to development. I can't learn from you unless I trust you. And one of my favorite coaching tips for teachers is don't try to teach a child something until you can tell me 10 things about that child. Emotions matter to cognition, and it's important to foster community in our classroom. Of course, we want to teach students how to read, but they have to feel safe to learn first. Step 3 is to be responsive to the students in front of you. The best teachers know when to stick to a plan and when to adjust based on what they see happening in real time. While the science of reading gives you a roadmap, the what, the art of teaching and the science of learning is about the how. It involves responsiveness and reading the room. Are your students struggling to grasp a concept? Get creative with how you present it. Just because something is evidence-based doesn't mean it has to be dry or boring. Explicit instruction is not a lecture. Explicit instruction engages students in real time as you toggle between I do, we do, and you do. But being responsive allows you to do I do, we do, we do, we do, you do, and maybe we do, we do, we do a little bit more. And we do those we do, we do, we do's in some more creative ways. At the Reading League conference this past October, Zaretta Hammond moved me with this particular quote. She said, "We have to help students find the joy in deliberate practice and productive struggle." She also said, "Competence precedes joy." This means that while explicit instruction is vital, it doesn't have to be dry or rote. When students feel competent, when they start to understand how reading works and begin to unlock those skills, that's when the real joy of reading starts to take root. Zaretta Hammond's idea of productive struggle is about creating the space for students to engage deeply with the material, to grapple with the concepts, and to work through challenges. It's not about making things easy, but about supporting them through deliberate practice until they reach mastery. As teachers, we need to build in these opportunities for students to struggle productively because that's where the deep learning happens. Learning to read is not always easy, but it's deeply rewarding. And when we allow students to engage in that process, we're not only building strong readers, we're also building confident and resilient learners. When you're responsive, you're not just following the script. You're differentiating and adjusting for the students in front of you. Teaching is not easy. It truly is an art. And when you're being responsive, the goal is to make the learning experience memorable. Not memorable as in, oh my gosh, that was so much fun. That's not a bad thing. But memorable as in, I'm learning how to hold this information in my long-term memory. And that's how we bridge the science of reading with the science of learning and the art of teaching. So bringing together the science of reading and the art of teaching is really a fine dance. From understanding what the research has to say, building a community of learners, and being responsive to the students in front of you. You bring your own unique creativity to the table as an educator. So as you think about your own practice, remember, balanced literacy may have had its heart in the right place, but structured literacy is what ensures every child can actually reach the joy that balanced literacy promised. It's the combination of evidence-based practices with your unique creativity that will help your students thrive. Bringing together the science of reading and the art of teaching, that's the real key here. We need the evidence to guide us, but we also need to bring our hearts, our creativity, and our responsiveness to our classrooms every single day. When we do that, when we honor both the science and the art of teaching, we're not only building strong, proficient readers, we're also sparking a love of reading that can last a lifetime. Thank you so much for joining me on Literacy in Color today. I hope you walk away feeling inspired to continue bridging the gap between evidence-based practices and the creative human side of teaching. Remember, you are the artist shaping the future of your students' literacy journeys. See you next time. Thank you so much for tuning into Literacy in Color. I hope today's episode left you feeling both inspired and equipped with something new to add to your teaching toolkit. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would truly mean so much to me if you'd leave a 5-star review. It helps other educators find the show and join our colorful community. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more tips, tools, and resources, be sure to check out the links in the show notes at michelleandthecolorfulclassroom.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week. Until then, be colorful and teach colorfully.